It's a new week, but the same old sad story for the Red Sox as they lose 2 out of 3 to the AL East worst team, the Baltimore Orioles, this past week. But the bright side is that the pitching has been very good, but it's the same story where the offense has been flat throughout April. Hopefully, going into May, things will change. We'll see what happens for the Red Sox against the Angels. But what's up, everybody? This is the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski. I'm here with my co-host, NESN writer Lauren Campbell. We're going to break everything down for you. What's been going on with the Red Sox this past week, as well as what to look forward to this next week.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, Lauren, it's been tough to watch the last week or so for the Red Sox. As I mentioned in the opening, the offense has still been super duper flat, but we can't say enough about how impressive this starting pitching and the bullpen's been all right. They've been doing enough, but it seems like at the end of the day, if the offense is only able to put up 2 to 3 runs, how are you going to win ball games?
Yeah, and I said this on Sunday's episode that they leave so many runners on base and runners in scoring position. Like they were 1 for 8 in Saturday's game, I believe it was, and I'm just like, you can't do that against any team, but especially against the Orioles, a team that the Red Sox should be beating up on. And I was really hoping this was the series, the offense would click. But you did mention the pitching, that it hasn't really been the problem. And we could argue that it was in Sunday's loss because the Red Sox did put up 5 runs thanks to JD Martinez's grand slam there. But the pitching, you look at Nate Eovaldi, he has gone 7 innings in 2 straight outings. He's done everything possible to give this team a win. Rich Hill looked really good on Friday, 4 innings, but you'd like a little more out of him. And he did get a quick hook from Cora, but you liked what you saw from him, and that gives you reason to be optimistic. And Garrett Whitlock has looked good as a starter in his 2 starts. I'm excited to see him again. Nick Pivetta has struggled, but overall, going into the season, we were like, this pitching is going to be the reason the Red Sox lose games. This pitching is going to be the problem. And we're sitting here like, so the pitching really isn't the problem for the first month of the season. It's the offense. They can't do anything. And like you said, it's tough to watch because they're swinging at everything. There's no patience here.
I mean, especially when you look at the second game of the series. I mean, Eovaldi 8 strikeouts, 7 innings, only allowing 3 hits, and the Red Sox still end up losing 2-1 in extras. Like that's just embarrassing in my opinion. And as you mentioned, so many swings and misses. They're just not being patient. And we heard JD Martinez, talk a little bit about the struggles, and I wasn't surprised what he said, but at the same time, it's sort of an excuse because, and he pretty much mentioned how the shortened spring training is the biggest thing, and I get it. Guys weren't able to figure out their timing. They weren't able to work on things that that they wanted to work out during that time and couldn't during the offseason. But every single team is dealing with that. Every single team is dealing with dealt with abbreviated spring training. And, this offense is just way too good to be struggling as bad as it is. And, it's for some players, it's not surprising. Seeing Jackie Bradley only hit 156 isn't super duper surprising. But it's tough. When you see these stats, I saw this morning. 3 former Red Sox players have more home runs than the entire team. The Red Sox have 13. Kyle Schwarber, Hunter Renfroe, and Michael Chavis combined in 2022 have 15. That's sad. I'll always say in Heim we trust, but at the same time, that is sad for how much firepower this offense has.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. The offense just is not clicking right now. They're not hitting home runs. They're not scoring they're barely even scoring, but it's just mind-boggling because you look at the batters 1 through 6, the guys that you depend on, the guys that should have power, and it's flat. And you can look at the numbers, and it's like you said, Jackie Bradley Jr. is not all that surprising. We don't expect him to be a firepower here in the offense. But this is the time where we'd love for him to do that, because the Red Sox and the fans need something to be excited about. And if that's Jackie Bradley Jr. sparking this offense somehow, some way, they 100% need to do something, because it's so tough to watch Bobby Dahlbeck up there. It's so tough watching Kike Hernandez up there, and it's Trevor Story seems to be finding his swing. And I understand that the spring training was shortened. How long do we use that for an excuse? Because now we're in May. Like you said, every team went through it, and it does. Someone like JD Martinez, he's prided himself on being a very trained hitter. That guy watches his batting practice. He watches his previous at bat. He is all about learning and trying to perfect his swing. But I'm just sitting here and he missed the last 6 or 7 of 8 games with an adductor issue, and it was nice to see him kind of just get right back in the box and hit the grand slam on Sunday. But we need more of that every single game, and it shouldn't be on just one person. When you have such a deep lineup for 1 through 6, they should be hitting home runs almost every single night.
Couldn't agree more. And it's really been tough to watch, especially if a game gets close, the confidence level is just so low on them coming back. I mean, even when they were playing Toronto and they scored 5 runs, I think it was in the 8th inning. It was 5-2. That was the last episode that I recorded, and ultimately Diekman blew it up, and the Sox ended up losing in extra innings. But for people who are looking at sort of guys like Bobby Dahlbeck specifically and thinking that if you call up Tristan Casas, it's immediately going to change everything. I don't think that's the answer, because even though Casas, top prospect in the Red Sox system, has super bright future, he's been struggling recently, and I don't want fans to expect something sort of like we expected from Jarren Duran last season, that if he shows what he can do in AAA, he's going to come up and automatically just show his full potential. I don't think that's going to happen, because we saw Casas struggle a little bit this past week on the road. Looking at his stats right now, he does have 5 home runs, 16 RBIs, hitting .262, but he does have 23 strikeouts, over 22 hits. So I still want to make sure that we're giving Casas enough time to get acclimated to that AAA pitching, so then the transition to the majors is as seamless as possible. But it's tough to continue rooting for a guy like Bobby Dahlbeck, hoping and praying that he's going to get back to sort of what we saw in the second half. And we've seen him struggle mightily during his first half over his short 2-season career so far. But it's tough to see guys like Christian Arroyo as well, who you and I both were hoping and praying that we would see breakout seasons from them after they had limited experience last season, but they just haven't come up.
No, and you make a good point about Tristan Casas, that he does have to get acclimated a little more. And Jarren Duran, that's always my prime example. Red Sox fans were hooting and hollering for Jarren Duran to get recalled last year, and he did, and he struggled, and people were like, what the heck? This guy sucks. And it's like, oh my God, there's no pleasing fan bases sometimes. And I've said this on a few episodes, where I don't know if Bobby Dahlbeck is the kind of player where he needs that competition. Like when Kyle Schwarber was traded for, all of a sudden he was a brand new player. And if recalling Tristan Casas would almost get him going, it's like, well, you obviously don't want to put Casas up and down between Boston and Worcester. But what the hell do you have to do to get this guy going? I said he was going to lead the team in home runs. He's making me look like a clown right now, because he cannot even hit the ball. But, I think that we'll see Casas before the All-Star break, which, what is that, June, July? So closer than we probably think.
Yeah.
But I like the idea, call me crazy, I like the idea of developing prospects, especially top prospects. And if he's going to be a superstar and he's going to be a difference maker for the Red Sox, you want to put him in a position to succeed. If you call up Casas, you're essentially saying like, hey kid, save our offense. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to do everything I can. And he's going to strike out in his first at bat, and it's going to be hell on earth, because if Casas can't save this offense, who can?
Very true. And, one thing that I am curious to see how the team continues to move forward in this specific position throughout this season is the catcher's position. We see Kevin Plawecki as well as Christian Vasquez both becoming free agents next year, and they both have struggled mightily at the plate. Vasquez 220 batting average, and then when you look at Plawecki, not much better. He's down under 200. We even saw him on the mound, a few days ago, which is so embarrassing, especially against the Orioles. But I'm curious to see how the Red Sox move forward in that position, if they potentially look to upgrade in any sort of way. I've seen a few people bring up the possibility of them trying to get A's catcher Sean Murphy, maybe throw in Vasquez with a few prospects, or you try to swing it in one way or the other. But even though that if you fix that position, it's not miraculously obviously going to fix the offense. I'm just curious to see, with both guys struggling really bad, how are they going to move forward?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I think, this is why we play 162 games, that either one of them is just not that far from turning it around. And I know that catchers, they're not supposed to be these big offensive threats. They call a good game, they're good defenders. And that's what Christian Vasquez is. I mean, he's thrown out 50% of the runners who've tried to run on him this year. So you like that, but you also would love some offense from your catchers, especially with the Red Sox struggling. It just takes one of these guys to start sparking the offense. But Sean Murphy's an interesting name. I haven't done a deep dive on what catchers are available next year via free agency or anything like that, but it will be interesting. There's prospects down in Portland and Worcester, and even in Salem. There's guys coming up through the system. So how patient will the Red Sox be with those guys? Will they try, like you said, to upgrade the position? It's interesting because Vasquez is a good catcher, but at the plate you're just like, ugh. And he had a double on Sunday. It's always good to see Plawecki and Vasquez do not really damage, but get hits. But it's almost like you want more. We need more from everyone, but it's upgrading. Do you want to risk a defense for more offense from a catcher, or vice versa? It's such a unique position.
Very true, and it's unfortunate to see, especially a guy specifically like Plawecki, who struggle as much as he is so far this season, because he's a great energy, great clubhouse guy. Also, we saw him hit very well last season. He was very productive at the plate, so I'm hoping that both guys can pick it up. I love both players on the team, but it's just a huge question mark going into 2023. But last thing I wanted to mention before we go into our second segment is I want to get your thoughts, especially from you, Lauren, about how they've been using Garrett Whitlock, because I know you're a big fan of him sticking in the bullpen, potentially being the closer. And we've seen the Red Sox, even though Whitlock in his performances as a starter has pitched very well, the Red Sox have not been able to pile up the wins when he is on the mound starting the game. They're 2-6 when after he's been moved to the rotation. In 3 of those losses, they have had the lead in the 8th or 9th inning. And it just kind of shows how much they really need his arm, in my opinion, in the bullpen. And we've also seen the Red Sox now also have more blown saves than they do saves. They have 6 blown saves and 5 saves. So it's something that I talked about a few episodes ago, but they need to figure out this close position.
They do. And I think when I was watching the game with Derek the other night, and we had this conversation, I was like, I think having Garrett Whitlock in the rotation is doing more harm than good. And that's not a knock on Whitlock by any means. He's been fine in the starter role, but there's nobody to trust out of the bullpen. And you could trust Garrett Whitlock in high leverage situations. You felt comfortable and confident going to him. And when he's a starter, you lose him for 5 days. You pitch him every 5 days, and you're like, oh, he could pitch 3 games in a row, or he could pitch maybe 1 game, or 1 game, 2 innings, the next game, 4 innings out of the bullpen. I just feel like there's more harm being done to the starter, or not the starters, the relievers in that bullpen, because you're going to tax them, you're going to overuse them, and you're just going to the same guys over and over. And I applaud Alex Cora for, putting Saramora right back in. Forget about Saturday. Just don't have any time to dwell on it. He did it with Jake Diekman. But you don't trust those guys to get those outs. And Garrett Whitlock, you can trust him to get those kinds of outs, to get you out of a bases loaded situation or induce a double play. You can trust Whitlock. and I want to see him succeed as a starter. I do, but I was team closer for Garrett Whitlock at the beginning of the season, and I'm still team Whitlock out of the bullpen because I just think that you need help there, and he's going to provide that help for you.
Very true. And, even though, the trade deadline is in July, I don't see Chaim Bloom being afraid to go out and make moves immediately to
I hope so.
upgrade this team. If they continue down this slide of losses, I think he has to do something.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see exactly what he does do, but we're going to be talking about it throughout the season here on Locked On Red Sox, and we greatly appreciate everybody making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. But I just want to take a second to talk to you about LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, with the spring in the air, it's time of renewal and growth, personality and professionally. As your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier for you to find people that you want to talk to faster and for free. And for myself, I've found multiple jobs on LinkedIn, as well as been able to connect with some great people. Actually, I think that's where you and I connected, Lauren, funny enough. And it's pretty amazing on LinkedIn because really whatever industry that you're in, it's very accessible for you to meet people in jobs or job titles that you've always dreamed of. And it's very easy to connect with them, get to know them, network with them. And that can even be the gateway to you getting your dream job. And you can actually create a free job posting in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach out to your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. And then you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so that your network can help you find the right people to hire. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know each week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. So I also want to take a second to talk to you about betonline.net. It's your #1 source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And lastly, go over and check out Locked On Now podcast. They recap MLB games with analysis from our local experts taking fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And also check out all the other great Locked On podcasts like Locked On Blue Jays, Locked On Yankees, even though we hate the Yankees, Locked On Orioles. All the Locked On podcasts on the network do a great job of covering your favorite teams every single day. So now looking at our second segment, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the smaller moves that the team has made over the last few days and sort of give our reaction to them. So, I've been somebody who throughout this season hasn't been the biggest Travis Shaw fan. So I was very excited to see him get designated for assignment. And he most recently did elect for free agency because he honestly wasn't doing anything. He wasn't giving any sort of benefit to this team, to this lineup, other than, replacing Bobby Dalbec or platooning with him at first base. And over his time with the Red Sox this season, he didn't even get a hit. So I'm excited to see what Franchy Cordero can do in his place.
Yeah, Franchi was doing well in Worcester when he got recalled. So hopefully he can translate that. He did struggle mightily last year in his short tenure with the Red Sox before getting optioned to Worcester. But there's no surprise that Shaw got DFA'd. I don't think the Red Sox gave up on him or anything. I don't think this speaks to Bloom's roster building or anything. He was here just to provide a boost and a platoon option, and he just couldn't get anything going. 7 strikeouts over 19 plate appearances, no hits. Like, he wasn't doing anything, and he wasn't helping this team at all. So they made a decision to DFA him. It's not surprising, and good for him for electing free agency. I mean, he's still young, and he probably could help a team. He just needs to figure out his swing, like most of the Red Sox do. But it's not a surprising move whatsoever.
I could see a rebuilding team going out and snagging him to fill
Yeah.
in some places. But yeah, as you mentioned, Cordero was hitting very well in Worcester, hitting 296 over 81 plate appearances. Still struggled a little bit with his strikeout rate, 28.3%. We'll see how that translates to the majors and sort of how the Sox are going to use him. We know that he can play first base, he can play the outfield. Both of them, his defense are kind of questionable. So we'll see how they go about that. But we also saw the Red Sox make their roster smaller down to 26 men, as it was 28 throughout the first month of the Major League season due to the lockout rules. So we saw them designate Jalen Davis as well as Phillips Valdez for an assignment. Curious to see if anybody really picks up either of those guys. We saw Davis go 2 for 4 in the last game. Also, Valdez pitched very well for the Red Sox during this first month of the season. Struggled a little bit during the last game, allowing 4 hits over 4 runs in 2 innings to the Orioles. So I think that's what probably motivated the Red Sox to send him down. But other than that, he was very reliable for this first month.
Yeah, I mean, there was not. I mean, I think those two guys were probably the most obvious choices to get optioned to Worcester. I don't think that. Again, there's no real surprise there. I liked Valdez. I really liked what he could do last year. I wish he could have done more of that this year. Jalen Davis looked fine while he was here. I think there was no reason to keep him on the roster when they not expanded when they were cut. You have to make the right decisions, and I think the Red Sox did just that. And these guys have minor league options. I'm kind of surprised. I think the only thing I'm really surprised about is that there are other pitchers in that bullpen who do have minor league options. But I guess you looking at the numbers, Valdez was probably, like I said, he makes sense, but I think he's probably the number one who makes the most sense. But I think that he'll get the call the second someone else starts to struggle, if there's an injury. And I think that's the scary thing about this bullpen is that they're one injury away from diving into Worcester and being like, we still don't trust anyone. Like they don't have a closer ready in Worcester. So no real surprise moves, I think, over the weekend. I think everything just kind of seems status quo. And like I said, we'll probably see those guys once again. And then obviously in September, we'll probably see plenty of them when the rosters expand once again. But no real surprise. I think I knew the Red Sox were going to go heavy on the pitchers. Yeah, like I said, no surprise there.
I'm curious to see when they bring back Josh Taylor and Darwinson Hernandez.
I think Josh Taylor will be ready soon.
Yeah, I looking at his stats right now. He's only pitched 2 innings so far in Worcester. So I'm curious to see how many more. I'm surprised that they haven't been using him more because he's been down in Worcester, I believe, for the last week or two. But I'm curious to see when they do bring him up. It's unfortunate to see Darwinson Hernandez struggling in Worcester because the last time I checked, he was pitching really well. But now that I'm looking over 13 innings, has allowed 12 earned runs. He's walked 12 guys and he's struck out 23. But the last time I looked, he's pitching really well. So it's unfortunate to see him kind of going off the rails there. But yeah, as you mentioned, it'll be very interesting to see how the Red Sox really use some of these pitchers from Worcester to potentially give them a shot in the bullpen to see what they can do if guys continue to struggle. We also saw another pitcher that the Red Sox picked up this past offseason in Derek Holland. He decided to opt out of his contract. Wasn't really performing too well in Worcester over 9 innings in 1/3. He had an ERA of 5.79. So not too big of a surprise. I didn't really see him impacting the team too much this season. Even when he got signed and we were talking about it, it wasn't like a whole party. We were wicked excited for Darren Holland to be on the team. But I'm curious to see sort of where his career continues to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anyone takes a chance on him and kind of where he ends up. It's disappointing it didn't work out. I wasn't expecting the world from him, but he just was not good in Worcester. He could not get it together at all. Disappointing. Like I said, I hope this isn't the end of the road for him because I do like the guy. But it was just he could not get it together during his time here. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to see kind of any pitcher, especially an older one, just kind of not get into a groove, because then you start wondering, is this the end of the road? And like I said, it's unfortunate, but he earned the right to opt out, and hopefully he can get another chance somewhere.
I hope so too. And we saw. I think one thing that people aren't really taking into consideration with these roster moves, with the roster shrinking from 28 to 26, that we could see Heim Bloom wheeling and dealing on the waiver wire. We've seen him do that throughout his time with the Red Sox, and I've seen a few people be pointed out on Twitter. Two players from the Guardians who recently got designated for assignment. One in Logan Allen, interestingly enough, a guy who got drafted by the Red Sox in 2015 and actually got sent over to the Padres in the Craig Kimbrell deal, which it's crazy remembering that deal. It was so long ago. And then also Bobby Bradley, the first baseman. But specifically, I think with looking at Bradley, he kind of reminds me so much of Franchi Cordero, a big home run guy, but strikes out a lot. But with Logan Allen specifically, even though he's struggled a little bit in the major leagues and not allowing guys to score runs, he's still very young. He's 25 years old, has a lot of upside in my opinion. And I think if the Red Sox take a shot on him, stick him down in Worcester, give him an opportunity to try and fix his mechanics, fix him into the top prospect that he used to be back in 2019, 2018. I think he could be an interesting person that they could look at.
Yeah, the Red Sox certainly do not need more people who are strikeout machines right now. That's the
No.
last thing they need, but they do need help on this offense. And honestly, if they think somebody is going to provide a spark for the offense, just go. Please, something, anything. I'm fine with whatever the Red Sox want to do if they truly believe it can help the offense. I don't care who it is. Bring them in, see if they can do it, see if they can help, see if they can hit. I mean, this offense is just so bad that it's almost like, what can you lose by claiming someone off waivers and trying to see if they'll work out for your team?
Very true. It's going to be really interesting to see what Heim Bloom does throughout this time to try and get this team back on track. But going into our third and final segment of this episode, we're going to be looking a little bit at the Angels series at Fenway over the next 3 days. But I just want to take a second to talk to you about Rock Auto. So with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like is your Odyssey an LX or an EX, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So save time and money when using Rock Auto. And why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Like, for example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $553 from a chain store, but $216 from Rock Auto. Rock Auto is also a family business serving do-it-yourself for over 20 years. So go explore their easy website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. So now looking at the Red Sox schedule over the next 3 days against the Anaheim Angels, we see Noah Syndergaard on the bump for the Angels going against Michael Wacha on today. And then we see Garrett Whitlock on Wednesday. It's still TBD on who is going to be on the bump for the Angels. And then Rich Hill for the Red Sox on Thursday. And still is not determined for the Angels for Thursday. But I'm curious to see how the Sox are able to stack up against this red-hot Angels team, even though they almost lost in 2 days ago against the White Sox due to their bullpen kind of blowing up. They're hot right now. They're 15-8.
Yeah, and that's bad news for the Red Sox, because you have Ohtani coming in, you have Trout coming in, and against the pitching that is fine, but the offense, you're not beating the Angels with 1 run. You're not beating the Angels with 2 runs. This is I say this every series, this is a very important time for the Red Sox offense to come alive. And this is take the wind out of the Angels' sails here for a little bit. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a really, really difficult series. And I'm hoping maybe just kind of the Red Sox coming home, then they'll be able to just kind of take in that the Fenway feel, the Fenway crowd, and just kind of use that to their advantage. But I am not feeling good against this Angels team. They're like you said, they're hot right now. They've done a lot of really good hitting, which the Red Sox cannot do. So hopefully they turn it on against the Angels, but it's not going to get any easier for the Red Sox if they can't figure out how to hit.
Couldn't agree more. It is nice going into this series seeing the Angels bullpen struggling a little bit. We saw 2 days ago against the White Sox, so there is that. And then also Ohtani will be curious. I'm curious to see how much he will play in this series. We saw him sort of have a groin issue 2 days ago in that White Sox series. But yeah, the offense needs to step up, especially with how good this Angels starting pitching has been. As surprisingly as that is to say, what wasn't really too high on their starting pitching going into this season, but they've surprised a lot of people. Hopefully, Waka can do the same thing that he's done so far in a Red Sox uniform that he has throughout this season. Only a 1.77 ERA. He's honestly the best pitcher in the rotation outside of Evaldi right now. But seeing Whitlock and Hill in there too, I have confidence. But yeah, the offense just needs to step up so then they're able to actually win this series.
Yep. That's the key is the offense. I think if the pitching can do what it's done, that it'll be fine. But it's the offense. If they're going to leave men in scoring position, if they're going to go 1 for 8, 1 for 9, you're not beating this Angels team.
Yeah, definitely not. But we'll be continuing the good vibes here on the Locked On Red Sox podcast, hoping and praying and crossing our fingers that the Red Sox offense can figure it out. But we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast and for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure to go over to Twitter and follow Locked On Red Sox. Over there, it's LO_Red Sox, as well as myself. It's at Jake Iggy, and also Lauren. It's 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But all we can do as Red Sox Nation is continue to stay positive, hope and pray that this team gets back on track. But Lauren and I will be here Monday through Friday giving you all the information that you need to keep up with this team. So definitely make sure that you are subscribed, not only on YouTube, but also on whatever audio platform that you're listening to. But we greatly appreciate everybody taking any second out of their day to listen to us talk about the Red Sox. But we will see you guys tomorrow. Let's end it how we always end it. Let's go Sox.